Signs of video game addiction and overuse. I'm Dr. Trish Leigh. Let me tell you some of the signs and the effects of too much video gaming on the brain and on the loved one in your life. Okay, so the first question I always get from people is internet gaming or video gaming actually an addiction? My short answer is yes. Although in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual number 5, the only real behavioral addiction is gambling. But what we know from science is that internet gaming and technology use produces very similar brain neural mechanisms as gambling. And there's a whole host of science that is coming out to support that. So the newest version of the International Classification of Diagnoses and Diseases, it's actually called, the 11th version, has internet gaming disorder as a classified disease because of the addictive nature. So does everybody get addicted to video gaming? Of course not. Just like alcohol, just like other substances, not everybody who uses them becomes addicted. But does it have a high propensity for addiction? Yes, it does. And what does that depend on? It depends on a variety of factors, but the main factors are the amount of use or how much time a person spends internet gaming. The reason behind that is the more that usually it's men, young men, boys, young men, or men now, the more that someone plays a video game, the more that their brain is being conditioned to come back for more and more gaming to feel okay in the world. And the reason that that happens is because of the neurochemical release. One main reason is the neurochemical release of dopamine and other neurotransmitters that makes the brain feel good, pleasure, and also helps the brain escape the pain of real life. So in essence, the more and more a person comes back to video gaming, the less easy it is to exist in the real world where there is no large neurochemical release into the brain. So that results in aggressive behavior and isolation back into the video game. And we're going to get there in a second, the effects. But that is one of the mechanisms that is underlying the idea of addiction. We know that when the brain is conditioned to come back for more neurochemical release, that creates an addictive type of pattern back to video gaming. At the same time, when we're talking about a screen being used, screens resonate at 60 hertz. That's very fast, high energy. And what that does for a brain is it stimulates it in the short run, which will help people with anxiety feel calmer when they're playing video games. It will help people with ADHD get the stimulation that their brain craves in the short run. But what happens is over time, the brain becomes wired and tired, and it's actually being referred to as electronic screen syndrome. And we know that the more and more a person comes back for video gaming, the more their brain is becoming wired and tired, which also results in the behaviors that you will see when that person is disconnected from their video games and has to go participate in their real world with their family and with their loved ones. So at the core of video gaming is too much, too consistently, and the amount of intensity in the video games, screen changes, a lot of action, that is giving the brain calming and stimulation simultaneously that will make it want to come back for more and more and more. So another question that I get is, does video gaming result in aggressive behavior? It can. It can result in a brain pattern that creates emotional volatility. And it's a very specific brain pattern up here in the frontal lobe where there's an imbalance in the way that energy is being used that can be created from too much video gaming. And when that happens, someone will be more emotionally volatile and irritable. So yes, and science proves this too, that yes, more consistent, frequent, lots of video gaming can create aggressive behavior in the world. Okay, so we've covered addiction. Is it a true addiction? We've talked about that. There's similarities to other addictions. Let's move on to what the harmful effects of video gaming are. Science shows that aggressive behaviors are increased. Science also shows that people who partake in more video gaming also show more symptoms that look like ADHD. That can be for two reasons. Either the person had an ADHD pattern in the first place, which makes them more likely to crave video games, but then that wired and tired brain pattern actually creates the symptoms of ADHD. So it's more difficult to attend and focus when the brain's not getting that neurochemical release. It's more difficult to use executive function skills like planning and organization, big picture thinking, and small steps being taken towards those larger goals, because the brain becomes conditioned to be able to get just immediate gratification with lots of stimulation and calming that is happening in front of the screen. We know that socialization becomes more difficult because people tend to become more isolated and are playing within the video game world and aren't using socialization skills out in the world. There can be increased musculoskeletal injuries, talking about the physical aspects, because a person may have carpal tunnel from using their mouse, or they may have more back and neck problems from sitting in front of their screen all the time. Seizures can also be, people can be at higher risk for seizures because when you're in front of a screen, your brain is being stimulated by all of the screen changes and the 60 hertz of electronic energy, so that it makes the brain pattern more chaotic, less stabilized, less organized, which can put it at risk for seizure activity. There are many, many physical symptoms that can come out of a video game addiction. Mental health symptoms like anxiety and depression are the two main ones that can result from having the brain pattern being made into an irregular brain pattern from so much video game exposure and from playing. So there's real health risks in terms of physical, cognitive thinking, psychological, and emotional issues that can result from excessive video gaming. So what do? The easy step is to balance video gaming. It's easy, no. Simple, yes. Simply put, that you should have your child or the man in your life only play video games for 1 hour and 15 minutes and then take a break. And, I know that I have 5 beautiful children, and my boys love to play video games. So do my girls these days, but my boys really love to play video games, and they tell me nothing. They can't get anything done in an hour and a half. Our rule is 2 hours on, and then you have to go take a break in the real world for doubly long as you were just on. And then in that way, you're balancing the effects of video gaming on the brain pattern. Because if you play for 2 hours, but then you go out and do something for 4 hours, you bring all that excessive energy down, and you're basically rebooting your brain. So the next time you go in, you have a new baseline or starting point. If you don't take a break, all the energy in your brain keeps rising and rising and rising. And that's what creates the irritability and the emotional volatility, the aggression. The breaks are essential for offsetting the brain pattern that is created by gaming. Now, one of the most powerful tools to offset the brain pattern created by gaming is home neurofeedback. That's the service that I provide, and I'm not here talking about it because it's the thing that I've done forever. It is the thing that I do that I morphed into doing over 25 years, and I've done it for 10 years now, but I've morphed into that because it's the number one neurotherapy that can offset internet, gaming, and technology, which is my mission these days, is to help people to regulate their brains so they can regulate their minds and bodies. So if you know someone who has excessive gaming or overuse and it's really difficult for them to come out of that pattern, home neurofeedback can offset the effects. Not that I want them gaming that much, but it can really offset the effects and help to bring that pattern back down to baseline so that they can perform better in the world, so they can still get their schoolwork done, they can get their work done if they're grown, they can participate in family life, they can continue to engage in their hobbies and still be happy and on purpose in their life. If that sounds interesting to you, visit my website at drtrishleigh.com. There's all the information there about my internet addictions and overuse programs, because I love to help people to be able to get out of this cycle so that they can move on and reach their full potential and go on to live the life that they deserve and that they ultimately want in there before the gaming pattern started blocking that for them. So go visit my website. And As always, remember, control your brain or it'll control you.